great American Mustang, a symbol of true freedom. A few rogues roaming the West, wild and unencumbered. But what happens when those few grow in numbers beyond what the land can support? How do they survive? How do they recover? Those questions are on the minds of Bureau of Land Management leaders as they work to keep the wild Mustangs alive and flourishing.
We're out here today on a wild horse gather. We're actually gathering wild horses off the Confusion herd management area west of Delta.
Well, the wild horses have a mystique about them because everybody likes to see the wild horses on the range. The problem is that there's not enough food and water out on many of these ranges for these wild horses, and they do have to be managed. And that's where the rub comes in, is how much is management and how much is not.
We have other species that are also relying on this same water and forage and this habitat that the wild horses occupy. And so it's kind of a balancing act to have all of those resources in check so that they can all survive and live in harmony out here with the environment.
We need to be vigilant, that we constantly monitor those herds, and when they reach a point where their health of those herds are at stake, then I believe we BLM need to come in and gather those horses and proceed with adoptions.
Having almost no predators to speak of, wild horses and burro populations have grown on average of 20% per year. Once those numbers are no longer sustainable, the BLM steps in to avoid huge numbers of die-offs of these majestic creatures. As humanely as possible, groups are rounded up to be cared for.
Every year we try to improve our ways of gathering our wild horses. We've realized that if we can bring them in at a slow pace with the helicopter and keep them in their bands, it's certainly a lot less stressful than having a wrangler go out there and chase them.
Once the horses are removed from the range, they are put into an adoption program, and many of those horses find homes all across the country.
While most of us have dreamed of owning our own horse at one time or another, few of us ever buy one. Fear of the long-term cost often gets in the way. With the adoption program, however, owning a horse is actually quite feasible and comparable to other recreational vehicles. Take an average ATV, for example. The initial cost is $1,500 down. Your monthly expenses, including gas, will run about $185. With a horse or burro adoption, the price to purchase is actually quite low, normally a little over $100, unless you have them saddle ready, in which case the cost with gear will be maybe $1,425. With monthly costs about $220, horse ownership is much more realistic than many would-be owners might think.
I want to encourage a lot of our folks that can adopt horses to adopt some of our wild Mustangs. What a wonderful opportunity for them.
They're smart. There's kind of a fresh slate. Anything the horses know that you've taught them, you kind of get to work with the animal and you create a bond with them that's really hard to describe and something that you don't really see with domestic horses.
It's like a win-win situation when we gather. It's a win for the range, that it can rejuvenate, and hopefully we can provide, for the horses that are on there, and also a win-win for the horses who are going into our adoption program.
Adoption facilities for wild horses and burros are open to the public, and families are invited to come down and enjoy the animals whether they're planning on adopting or not. Mustangs will always inspire us as they run free on the range. That's why the Wild Horse and Burro Gather program exists. So these populations will be here for future generations. For AYL, I'm Andy White.